before the world knew him as Genghis Khan, he was a boy named Temüjin. He was born into a world migrating herds and families who carried nearly everything they owned across the steppe. There were no stone walls to protect him, no permanent kingdom waiting for him, no royal palace, no great army. Only horses, kinship, loyalty, hunger, and the constant possibility of betrayal. When Temüjin was still a child, his father was killed. His family was abandoned. They lost their followers, their protection, and much of their livestock. For years, survival itself was uncertain. Yet from that harsh beginning, Temüjin would rise to unite the divided peoples of the Mongolian plateau. He would defeat old rivals, break powerful alliances, reorganize steppe society, and create the foundation of the largest contiguous land empire the world would ever know. His armies crossed deserts, mountains, frozen rivers, and thousands of miles of open land. They brought down cities that believed themselves secure. They destroyed kingdoms that had existed for generations. They carried terror from northern China to Central Asia, but they also connected distant regions. They moved merchants, craftsmen, messengers, technologies, and ideas across Eurasia. Genghis Khan remains one of the most difficult figures in history to judge. To many Mongolians, he is remembered as the founder of their nation, a lawgiver, a unifier, a leader who transformed scattered peoples into a political community. To many of the societies his armies invaded, he is remembered as a destroyer, a conqueror whose campaigns brought massacre, enslavement, famine, and the ruin of ancient cities. Both memories belong to the same man. His empire was created through organization and loyalty. It was also created through violence on an enormous scale. This is the story of Temüjin, the abandoned child who became Genghis Khan, the man who built the foundations of the greatest land empire in history. The exact year of Temüjin's birth is uncertain. Several dates have been proposed by historians. The year 1162 is traditionally accepted, but other possibilities remain. He was probably born near the Onan River, in the region of modern northeastern Mongolia. His father was Yasujai, a leader of the Borjigin lineage. His mother was Hoelin. According to Mongol tradition, Hoelin had originally been traveling with another husband when Yasujai carried her away and made her his wife. Such violence was not unusual in the politics of the steppe. Marriage could create alliances. Abduction could destroy them. A family was never only a household. It was a network of obligations, warriors, relatives, and enemies. Temüjin entered life surrounded by these tensions. His father had followers, but he was not the ruler of a united Mongol nation. There was no single Mongol state. The people of the plateau were divided among clans, tribes, confederations, and shifting alliances. Mongols, Tatars, Merkit, Kharit, Nayman, and many smaller groups competed for pasture, animals, trade, prestige, and revenge. A man might be an ally one season and an enemy the next. Loyalty often depended upon family ties, gifts, military success, and personal reputation. The steppe could support strong leaders, but it could also destroy them quickly. When Temüjin was still young, Yasujai arranged a marriage for him with Borte, the daughter of a neighboring family. Temüjin was left for a time with Borte's people. On his journey home, however, Yasujai encountered Tatars. According to the traditional account, they recognized him as an old enemy and secretly poisoned him. He managed to return to his camp, but soon died. Temüjin was probably 8 or 9 years old. The death of Yasujai changed everything. His followers did not accept a child as their leader. One by one, they abandoned Hoelin and her children. The family was left with little protection and few animals. For the widow and her children, life became desperate. They survived by gathering roots and wild plants. They caught fish. They hunted small animals. They guarded what little they possessed. Later stories describe Hoelun as a powerful and determined mother. She held the family together after the men who had followed her husband walked away. Temüjin's childhood did not teach him that loyalty was natural. It taught him that loyalty had to be earned, rewarded, and sometimes enforced. It also taught him that family unity could become a matter of life and death. Within the household, conflict grew between Temüjin and his older half-brother, Bedr. The boys competed over food, authority, and the future leadership of the family. According to the secret history of the Mongols, Temüjin and his younger brother Khazar killed Bedr. It was a dark moment. Hoelun condemned her sons. But the killing removed a rival within the family. Temüjin was still young, yet he had already learned that weakness invited danger and divided authority could end in blood. At some point in his youth, Temüjin was captured by members of the Temüjin, a group connected with his father's former followers. Traditional accounts say he was placed in a wooden collar and guarded as a prisoner. He escaped with the help of a man who chose not to reveal his hiding place. The details may have been shaped by later storytelling, but the episode reflects an important truth about Temüjin's rise. He did not succeed alone. Again and again, individual people chose to help him. Some were relatives. Some were outsiders. Some belonged to defeated groups. Temüjin remembered loyalty. And when he gained power, he often rewarded it. After surviving childhood, he returned to the marriage arranged by his father. Borte became his principal wife and one of the most important figures in his life. Their marriage strengthened Temüjin's connection to her family. It also gave him a household around which a new political following could grow. But soon after the marriage, Borte was abducted by market raiders. The attack may have been connected to an older cycle of revenge. Years earlier, Yasujai had taken Hoelun from a market husband. Now another woman was taken in return. Temüjin did not yet have the military power to rescue Borte alone. He turned to two important allies. The first was Togrul, the ruler of the powerful Kharazmian Confederation. Togrul had once been connected to Temüjin's father and accepted the young man as a kind of political son. The second was Jamukha. Jamukha and Temüjin had formed a close ritual friendship. In Mongol tradition, they were Anda, sworn brothers. With the forces of Togrul and Jamukha, Temüjin attacked the market. Borte was recovered. Soon afterward, she gave birth to a son named Joki. Because her pregnancy followed her captivity, some later rivals questioned Joki's paternity. The uncertainty would cause tension among Temüjin's sons. But Temüjin accepted Joki as his own. For the moment, the rescue brought Temüjin, Togrul, and Jamukha together. It also gave Temüjin something he had lost after his father's death: followers. His reputation began to grow. He attracted people who saw promise in him. Some came from the Borjigin lineage. Others did not. This was significant. Traditional steppe leadership depended heavily on aristocratic birth and clan connections. Temüjin understood those traditions, but he was willing to cross them. A herder, servant hunter, or warrior from a modest background could rise if he demonstrated courage and loyalty. Temüjin did not abolish hierarchy. He created a new hierarchy centered increasingly upon himself. At first, Temüjin and Jamukha remained close. They camped together. They shared followers. But they represented different paths to leadership. Jamukha was associated with the older steppe aristocracy. Temüjin gradually attracted men who hoped ability and service might matter more than inherited rank. Their friendship weakened. Their camps separated. And the two sworn brothers became rivals. The struggle between them was not a single battle. It was a long political conflict shaped by shifting alliances. At times, Temüjin was defeated. At times, he disappeared from the surviving record. Later tradition turned the story into a clear rise from suffering to victory. The reality was probably less orderly. Temüjin endured setbacks. Allies abandoned him. Enemies surrounded him. He survived because he was able to rebuild after defeat. He listened to information. He adapted. He understood that steppe warfare was not only about fighting. It was about breaking alliances before a battle began. It was about controlling families, herds, and migration routes. It was about convincing defeated warriors that they had a future under a new leader. Temüjin's relationship with Togul became central to his rise. The Kharit ruler was stronger and older. Together, they fought common enemies. They also cooperated with the Jin dynasty, which ruled much of northern China, in a campaign against the Tatars. The Tatars had long been enemies of Temüjin's family. They were associated with the death of his father. When they were defeated, Temüjin took harsh revenge. The adult males of the defeated group were reportedly killed according to a measure based on the height of a cart axle. The exact details are difficult to confirm, but the broader pattern is clear. Temüjin could incorporate enemies when it served him. He could also attempt to destroy a rival group as a political force. His methods mix inclusion with terror. Those who submitted early could be spared and absorbed. Those who resisted betrayed him or killed his envoys could face devastating punishment. As Temüjin's following expanded, Togul became increasingly uneasy. The young ally had become a competitor. Marriage negotiations between their families failed. Suspicion deepened. In 1203, Togul's forces attacked Temüjin. Temüjin was driven into a dangerous position and lost many followers. For a time, his future seemed uncertain. But he escaped. He gathered the survivors. At a place remembered as Baljuna, a small group of loyal men remained with him in extreme hardship. Later Mongol tradition treated their loyalty as sacred. Temüjin did not forget them. Once again, defeat became the beginning of recovery. He reorganized. He gained new supporters. Then he struck back. Togul's power collapsed. The Kharit Confederation was defeated and absorbed. Togul fled and was killed. One of the greatest powers of the steppe had disappeared. Temüjin then turned against the Nayman, another strong confederation in western Mongolia. The Nayman had become a gathering point for his remaining enemies. Jamukha was among them. In 1204, Temüjin defeated the Nayman forces. The political balance of the plateau was broken. There was no longer another confederation strong enough to challenge him. Jamukha eventually fell into Temüjin's hands. According to traditional account, Jamukha was betrayed by his own followers. Temüjin had the betrayers executed because they had turned against their lord. He then offered Jamukha reconciliation. Jamukha refused. He asked to die without the shedding of blood, a death considered appropriate for a noble. The former sworn brothers had reached the end of their long conflict. Whether every detail occurred exactly as later recorded cannot be known. But the story reflects the values Temüjin wanted associated with his rule. Loyalty mattered. Even the betrayal of an enemy was dishonorable. In 1206, a great assembly or kurultai gathered near the Onan River. Temüjin was proclaimed Genghis Khan, commonly rendered in English as Genghis Khan. The precise meaning of the title remains debated. It may have suggested a universal or oceanic ruler. Whatever its original meaning, it marked the creation of a new political order. Temüjin was no longer merely the leader of one lineage. He was the ruler of a united Mongol people. This unity was not peaceful. It had been created through decades of warfare, alliance, execution, marriage, and absorption. But it changed the history of Eurasia. Genghis Khan reorganized the people under his control. He weakened some of the older clan divisions by distributing families and warriors into new military units. The army was organized through a decimal structure. Groups of 10 were joined into hundreds, hundreds into thousands, thousands into units of 10,000, often known as tumans. Versions of decimal organization had existed among steppe peoples before Genghis. His achievement was to apply and strengthen such organization across the new empire. Commanders were chosen for reliability and ability, though family and aristocratic status remained important. A personal guard, the Kashid, protected the ruler and served as a school of imperial leadership. The sons of commanders and allied elites could serve within it. This kept powerful families close to the Khan. It also created a body of men personally connected to him. Discipline was severe. Soldiers were expected to remain with their units. Loot was regulated. Orders were transmitted through clear chains of command. Hunting exercises could train large forces to coordinate across open land. The Mongol army was built around mobility. A warrior might travel with several horses and change mounts during a campaign. This reduced exhaustion and allowed armies to cover great distances. Mongol composite bows were powerful weapons in skilled hands. Mounted archers could approach, release arrows, withdraw, and return. They could pretend to flee, drawing an enemy formation out of position. They could surround an army without immediately attacking. They used scouts, captured guides, merchants, and local informants to gather knowledge. Their victories did not come from one secret weapon. They came from coordination, speed, intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to bring different peoples into the Mongol military system. Genghis Khan also needed administrators. A cavalry army could conquer territory. It could not govern cities, collect taxes, record orders, or manage trade without specialists. The Mongols adopted writing from Uyghurs. Scribes recorded decrees and correspondence. Officials from conquered or allied peoples served the growing state. Craftsmen, translators, doctors, engineers, merchants, and religious figures could receive protection. The empire did not become a modern state overnight. Many institutions associated with later Mongol rule were developed further by Genghis Khan's successors. But the essential pattern had begun. The Mongols would conquer through steppe warfare and govern by borrowing useful skills from the societies they controlled. Religious policy followed a similar logic. Genghis Khan remained connected to the spiritual traditions of the steppe and to the idea that eternal heaven had granted him authority. But he did not demand that conquered peoples adopt a single religion. Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, Taoists, and practitioners of other traditions could serve the Mongol rulers. This should not be confused with modern equality. The empire could be violent and coercive. Yet compared with many contemporary states, its rulers were often willing to protect multiple religious communities as long as they remained loyal. With the steppe unified, Genghis Khan turned outward. The first major target was the Tangut kingdom of Western Xia, located to the south. Western Xia controlled important trade routes and fortified settlements. The Mongols had experience fighting other nomads. Siege warfare against defended cities was more difficult. They learned by using captured engineers and specialists. They adapted methods from Chinese and Central Asian warfare. By 1209, the Western Xia ruler submitted and provided tribute. The kingdom survived for the time being, but its independence had been weakened. The larger struggle was against the Jin dynasty. The Jin ruled northern China and possessed wealthy cities, large populations, fortified walls, infantry, cavalry, and sophisticated military resources. For generations, the Jin had influenced politics on the steppe. They had rewarded some groups and attacked others. Genghis Khan now challenged them directly. In 1211, Mongol forces entered Jin territory. The campaign demonstrated the difference between raiding and conquest. Mongol armies moved through mountain passes. They defeated field armies. They devastated agricultural regions. They captured people with technical knowledge. Cities that resisted could be attacked repeatedly or isolated until hunger forced surrender. The Mongols were still learning siege warfare, but each captured specialist increased their ability. In 1215, the Jin central capital of Zhongdu, near modern Beijing, fell to Mongol forces. The capture brought enormous wealth and destruction. Yet the Jin dynasty did not disappear. It moved its court south and continued resisting for years. Genghis Khan did not complete the conquest of all northern China. That task would continue under his successors. Still, the campaigns revealed that the new Mongol state could do more than dominate the grasslands. It could challenge one of the great settled powers of East Asia. To the west, events drew the Mongols into Central Asia. The Karakaitai state had become weakened by internal conflict. A Nayman prince named Kuklug, who had escaped Genghis Khan's earlier victories, seized power there. His rule alienated parts of the population. The Mongol commander Jib led a campaign against him. By 1218, Kuklug had been defeated and killed. The Mongols now reached the borders of the Khwarazmian Empire. Khwarazm was one of the most powerful states in the Islamic world. It controlled major cities and trade routes across Central Asia and Iran. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad II, governed a broad but unstable empire. At first, Genghis Khan did not necessarily seek immediate war. Trade could be more valuable than invasion. He sent a caravan of merchants into Khwarazmian territory. At the city of Otrar, the governor accused them of spying. The merchants were arrested and killed. Genghis Khan then sent envoys to demand that the governor be handed over. The Shah refused. According to the commonly accepted account, one envoy was killed and the others were humiliated. In the diplomatic culture of the Mongols, the murder of envoys was an intolerable offense. The response would be overwhelming. In 1219, Genghis Khan began the invasion of the Khwarazmian Empire. The campaign became one of the most destructive episodes of his life. The Mongols crossed a terrain their enemies believed would protect them. They divided their forces while maintaining coordination across great distances. One army moved toward the Sir Darya cities. Another crossed difficult desert routes. The Shah could not predict where the main blow would fall. He had distributed his forces among fortified cities rather than concentrating them in a single field army. This allowed the Mongols to isolate the cities one by one. Bokhara fell. Later chroniclers placed a dramatic speech in Genghis Khan's mouth, declaring himself a punishment sent by God. The exact words cannot be verified, but the destruction that followed needed no speech. Samarkand, one of the great cities of Central Asia, was defended by soldiers, walls, and war elephants. Yet its defenders were divided. Some surrendered. Others resisted. The city fell. Artisans and specialists were selected for service. Many inhabitants were killed, displaced, or enslaved. The Mongols used conquered populations according to military need. Some were forced to march before armies. Some were assigned to labor. Some were sent across the empire for their skills. Others died in massacres. The city of Otrar resisted for months. Its governor, whose actions had helped begin the war, was eventually captured. Stories about his execution became part of legend. The precise method of death is uncertain. What is clear is that Otrar was destroyed as a political and commercial center. Genghis Khan wanted the consequences of killing his merchants and envoys to be remembered. The Shah fled westward. Mongol commanders Jib and Subutai pursued him across enormous distances. He died on an island in the Caspian Sea. His son Jalal al-Din continued the resistance. At the Indus River in 1221, Genghis Khan defeated Jalal al-Din's army. Traditional accounts describe the prince escaping by riding his horse from a cliff into the river. Genghis Khan was said to have admired his courage. Once again, the story may have been shaped by later retelling. But Jalal al-Din did survive and continued fighting elsewhere. The conquest of Khwarazm shattered a major empire. Cities such as Merv, Nishapur, and Urgench suffered catastrophic destruction during the broader campaign. Medieval chroniclers gave enormous casualty figures. These numbers cannot be accepted literally. Pre-modern writers often exaggerated to express the scale of disaster. But rejecting the numbers does not mean denying the devastation. Large populations were killed. Irrigation systems were damaged. Communities were displaced. Economic networks were broken. Some regions recovered. Others did not regain their former importance for generations. Mongol terror was not random. It was often strategic. A city that surrendered without resistance might receive more favorable treatment. A city that rebelled after surrender could be destroyed. News of one massacre to convince the next settlement to open its gates. Terror saved Mongol lives by reducing later resistance. But for the people who faced it, strategy offered no comfort. The invasion of Central Asia revealed the full power of Genghis Khan's system. His armies could operate far from Mongolia. They could live from herds and captured resources. They could communicate across vast spaces. They could adapt Chinese, Muslim, and Central Asian siege techniques. They could absorb soldiers and specialists from each defeated society. And they were driven by a political belief that resistance to the Khan's authority was resistance to the order granted by heaven. While Genghis Khan returned east, Jib and Subutai continued through the Caucasus. They fought Georgian forces, crossed difficult regions, and entered the Western steppe. In 1223, they defeated a coalition of Rus princes and Cuman forces at the Kalkar River. This was not yet a permanent conquest of Eastern Europe. It was an extraordinary long-distance campaign of reconnaissance, warfare, and plunder. The full Mongol invasion of the Rus lands in Eastern Europe would come later, under Genghis Khan's descendants. This distinction matters. At his death, Genghis Khan had created a vast empire, but it had not yet reached its maximum extent. His sons and grandsons would carry Mongol armies into Russia, Hungary, the Middle East, Korea, and southern China. The largest contiguous land empire in history was a family achievement built upon the political and military foundation he created. Genghis Khan returned to Mongolia with immense authority. But questions of succession remained dangerous. Borte had given him 4 principal sons: Joki, Chagatai, Ogidi, and Talyui. The old uncertainty surrounding Joki's birth had not disappeared. Chagatai openly challenged his legitimacy. The rivalry threatened the unity of the family. Genghis Khan understood that an unclear succession could destroy everything he had built. He chose Ogidi as his primary successor. Ogidi was not necessarily the most brilliant warrior among the brothers, but he was regarded as more capable of working between rival factions. Joki died before Genghis Khan. The circumstances of their final relationship remain debated. Joki had ruled territories in the west and may have become increasingly independent. Stories later claim that father and son nearly came into open conflict. The evidence is incomplete, yet the tension reveals a central weakness of the empire. It had united many peoples under one ruler, but power was also distributed among members of the ruling family. After Genghis Khan's death, the empire would expand. It would also eventually divide among competing branches of his descendants. In his final years, Genghis Khan returned to war against Western Xia. The Tangut kingdom had earlier submitted, but its ruler had resisted demands for full military support during the Khwarazm campaign. To Genghis Khan, this was betrayal. In 1226, the Mongols launched a final invasion. Cities were attacked. Tangut forces were defeated. The campaign became one of deliberate destruction. During it, Genghis Khan became ill or injured. The exact cause of his death is unknown. Later traditions offered several stories. Some said he fell from a horse. Some said he was wounded. Others blamed illness. More dramatic legends developed long after his lifetime. None can be proven. Genghis Khan died in August 1227. He was probably around 65 years old if the traditional birth date is accepted. His death was kept secret while the Western Xia campaign continued. The kingdom was destroyed. Its ruler surrendered and was killed. Genghis Khan's final war ended with the disappearance of the state that had once submitted to him. His burial place remains unknown. According to tradition, his body was returned to Mongolia and buried in a secret location. Legends claim that witnesses were killed and that horses were driven over the grave to conceal it. These stories cannot be verified. No confirmed tomb of Genghis Khan has been found. The unknown grave has become part of his legend. The man who made his name known across Eurasia disappeared into the landscape of his homeland. What had he created? At the simplest level, he created an empire through conquest. But conquest alone does not explain his achievement. Many steppe leaders had won battles. Many had gathered confederations. Most of those confederations collapsed after the death of the founder. Genghis Khan created structures strong enough to survive him. He had reorganized military service, built a ruling household, developed systems of command, used writing and administrators, protected useful specialists, distributed territories among his family while preserving the ideal of one supreme Khan. His successors would expand messenger networks, tax systems, censuses, imperial courts, and commercial protections. They would rule through Chinese, Persian, Turkic, Uyghur, Arab, Christian, Buddhist, and many other officials. The empire became far more diverse than the society from which it emerged. Later generations experienced a period sometimes called the Pax Mongolica. Under Mongol rule, travel and trade across much of Eurasia became more closely connected. Merchants, envoys, missionaries, craftsmen, and ideas moved across enormous distances. Chinese technologies traveled westward. Knowledge from the Islamic world traveled eastward. Diplomatic contacts linked courts that had previously known little of one another. But these connections were built over landscapes that conquest had devastated. The roads of exchange followed the roads of war. The same empire that protected merchants had destroyed commercial cities. The same rulers who welcomed skilled craftsmen had enslaved and relocated them. The same political system that allowed religious diversity could annihilate a community that resisted. This contradiction is at the center of Genghis Khan's legacy. He was not simply a barbarian who emerged from nowhere. That image was shaped partly by terrified enemies and later stereotypes about nomadic peoples. The Mongols possessed their own political traditions, military knowledge, family systems, laws, diplomacy, and spiritual beliefs. Genghis Khan was an intelligent leader formed by that world. He understood people. He recognized talent. He rewarded loyalty. He learned from conquered societies. He could plan patiently and strike suddenly. But rejecting the stereotype does not require hiding the violence. His victories caused suffering on an immense scale. Populations were massacred. Captives were enslaved. Fields and canals were ruined. Entire regions were forced into a new imperial order. He was an innovative statesman. He was also a ruthless conqueror. For centuries, different societies remembered different versions of him. In Mongolia, his memory became connected to ancestry, political unity, and sacred kingship. In Persian and Central Asian histories, he often appeared as the source of terrible destruction, though later Mongol rulers also became patrons of Islamic culture. In China, his descendants established the Yuan dynasty. In Europe, his name became associated with invasion from the east, even though he himself never led an army into Central Europe. Modern culture has often simplified him. Some portray him only as a monster. Others transform him into a tolerant and enlightened hero. Neither portrait is complete. The real Genghis Khan belonged to a world with values different from those of the present. But historical context is not an excuse. It is a way of understanding. Steppe warfare was often violent before Temüjin. Dynasties across Eurasia used massacre, enslavement, and terror. Genghis Khan did not invent these methods. He organized them with extraordinary effectiveness. He made submission profitable and resistance terrifying. He turned personal loyalty into imperial structure. He transformed mobility into strategic power. And he understood that conquered knowledge could become a weapon for the next conquest. Perhaps his greatest talent was not destruction. It was transformation. He transformed himself from an abandoned child into a ruler. He transformed defeated enemies into soldiers. He transformed rival clans into a new Mongol identity. He transformed steppe cavalry into an imperial army capable of taking fortified cities. And he transformed a regional struggle for survival into an empire that changed the connections of the entire Eurasian continent. Yet transformation always carried a price. Temüjin had grown up in a world where abandonment meant hunger, where divided families could be destroyed, where a leader without followers became nothing. As Genghis Khan, he built a system in which abandonment and disloyalty were treated as mortal threats. His childhood may help explain his obsession with loyalty. It does not soften the consequences. The boy who had once been left with almost nothing created a political order in which everything depended upon service to him and his family. By the time he died, his name carried farther than the hoofbeats of any one army. His sons inherited enormous territories. Ogdi became Great Khan. Under Ogdi, Mongol armies completed the destruction of the Jin dynasty and moved deeper into Eurasia. Jochi's descendants created a Western Empire later known as the Golden Horde. Chagatai's descendants ruled in Central Asia. Taoyui's sons included Monk, Kublai, and Hulagu. They would rule China, attack the Middle East, destroy Baghdad, and divide the empire into powerful khanates. The empire reached its greatest size after Genghis Khan was gone. But none of it would have existed without the system he built. He did not personally conquer every land later shown on maps of the Mongol Empire. He created the army, ideology, dynasty, and political momentum that made those conquests possible. That is why the title of founder matters more than the title of conqueror. A conqueror may win territory. A founder creates something that continues after his death. Genghis Khan's empire continued. It expanded beyond anything he had seen. Then, over time, it divided. Its branches adopted local cultures. Some became Muslim. Some ruled through Chinese institutions. Some mixed Mongol, Turkic, Persian, Russian, and other traditions. The united empire did not remain united forever. But the world it changed could not return to what it had been. Trade routes had shifted. States had fallen. New dynasties had appeared. Populations had moved. Knowledge had crossed continents. And the descendants of a once abandoned boy ruled from the Pacific Ocean toward Eastern Europe. Genghis Khan did not leave behind a marble capital bearing his name. He did not build a pyramid. His body does not rest in a known palace tomb. His monument was movement. An empire of riders, families, camps, roads, messages, conquered cities, and inherited authority. For those who followed him, he had brought order to the steppe. For those who resisted him, he often brought the end of their world. Both were true. The same hand that rewarded a loyal shepherd could order the destruction of a city. The same ruler who welcomed foreign craftsmen to condemn thousands to death. The same empire that connected civilizations could erase communities from the map. History does not require us to choose only one Genghis Khan. The founder and the destroyer were the same man. The disciplined organizer and the ruthless warlord shared the same purpose: to create a world in which no rival could ever abandon, humiliate, or threaten him again. In his childhood, Temüjin had learned how quickly a family could lose everything. As Genghis Khan, he made entire kingdoms learn the same lesson. And when he finally disappeared into the Mongolian earth, the empire continued moving without him. Horses still crossed the steppe. Messengers carried commands. Armies gathered under banners of his sons. Merchants entered roads protected by his descendants. Prayers rose in temples, churches, mosques, and tents across lands ruled by his family. Cities rebuilt. Others remained in ruins. The world remembered. More than 8 centuries later, his name still creates both pride and fear. In Mongolia, he stands at the center of national memory. Across Eurasia, his campaigns remain part of the histories of conquest and loss. His face appears in statues, paintings, currency, films, and legends. Yet we still do not know exactly when he was born. We do not know exactly how he died. We do not know where he lies buried. The details of the man remain partly hidden. But the scale of what he created cannot be hidden. Temüjin began life as a vulnerable child on a divided steppe. He ended it as the supreme ruler of an empire stretching across much of Asia. He united peoples who had spent generations fighting one another. He created a military system that defeated larger and wealthier states. He opened a path by which his descendants built the largest contiguous land empire in human history. And he left the world with a question that has never fully disappeared. Can the order created by conquest ever be separated from the suffering that made it possible? For Genghis Khan, order and destruction rode together. Across the open grasslands, across the deserts of Central Asia, across the walls of China, across the borders of kingdoms that had never imagined a Mongol army would appear before them. The abandoned boy had found his followers. The prisoner had broken free. The rival had defeated every rival. And the man who once owned almost nothing had placed much of the known world within the reach of his family. His empire would one day divide. His armies would one day disappear. But the movement he began would reshape Eurasia for centuries. That was his victory. That was his violence. And that was the legacy of Genghis Khan.